Alright, I'm back from Gurgaon, actually back home in Bengaluru for a brief period before I go back to Hyderabad. Long term viewers may recognize this bedroom. Spent a full 5 days in Gurgaon, 3 days working on the project, and the remaining two just hanging out. And honestly, can I just say how freaking cool it was to finally meet my internet friends in person? Animesh, Shrish, and I, we have known each other for several years now from YouTube, but we never actually got to meeting. And to finally meet them in person was a really nice feeling. And honestly, didn't feel like this was the first time meeting. It felt as if I'd known them all their life. I guess that's what happens when you've watched somebody and been friends with somebody on the internet for a very long period.
What's up? Hello sir. कैसे हो भाई?
मैं कंफ्यूज हो गया। वो देख वहाँ पे लिखा है ना T2 T3 और वो बंदे ने भी T2 बोला। वो लिखा है शटल और तेरे को मैंने बोला था वो।
Just wanted to make this little video reflecting on the project that we just did in Gurgaon. It was my first big ad film experience. I was the DP on it. Animesh directed it. Firstly, what a freaking place! I've been there. I've lived in Gurgaon before. I've lived in Faridabad before, and I forgot what that region felt like in January. It was really freaking cold, but I loved it. It was dystopian, and it felt like Blade Runner. To give you a little context about the project, we were shooting an ad for a EV charger brand, and it was 2 days of filming and 1 day of prep. So day one, we arrived, hung out, met the client, did a in-person recce, and everything was great, honestly. And we went out to have the best Punjabi food I have ever had. And while we were devouring this Punjabi food, we had our first problem. So the film takes place at a parking lot, right? And it can't be just any parking lot. It has to be the parking lot where the client has the EV chargers. And this was a limitation that was set on us right from the get-go. We knew about it from the scripting stage months before we came to production. And honestly, it's a good thing. Limitations are good for creativity, right? And we had everything sorted, but on the day we arrived, after the recce, the client decided out of nowhere that we could not be getting the location to shoot. By this point, we were already in Gurgaon, and the actors were also arriving the next day. This was quite out of the blue, so the client and the location people spoke, and they spoke some more, and they finally agreed to give us the location, but for only 4 hours for 2 days. The original plan was to shoot for 8 hours each for 2 days, but we took what we could get and put our Jugadu brains to use and figured that we could shoot all the wide shots in our primary location, in the one that we want to shoot, and then do all the dialogue close-ups in a different parking lot. And hopefully when we put it together in the edit, it would look like a single location. Now, cheating locations in film is not new. It happens all the time. However, this second location where we were gonna do our dialogue close-ups had a very bad sound situation, and we were doing sync sound on set. Did not account for dub.
I'm feeling very nervous.
क्यों यार?
First experience ever. Like, how was your first experience?
हाँ थोड़ा nervous.
Yeah. One thing I'm excited about. I just want to first see how the actors perform in the sense with so many people. It's like new stuff for me.
What's your role on this set? Quickly.
I'm working as an AD, so I will be doing the AD stuff. One more.
Let's go.
I wanted on the car.
There were other issues, two of my own internal battles that I was specifically dealing with that I mentioned in the last episode. Number one, I hadn't used an Alexa Mini before, ever in my life. And number two, up until this point, I have not led a team like this at an ad film level. I've done it on other smaller projects, on some of the Nikhil Kamath podcasting stuff, on the short films that I've been on, but not in an ad film setting like this. So how did that go, you ask? Well, let's talk about it. First, the Alexa. So Dinesh and I, we went to the camera rentals to sort of close everything. Now, being that we're from the south, we'd been warned about how people can be a little bit harsh in the north, and I've had that experience in the past. But I'm a little bit of an optimist in life, and I do believe there's some amount of kindness in everybody, and you just need to tap into that. So my plan was to show up at the rentals and ask them to set up the Alexa for me, hopefully get some time with it before the actual shoot. The rental was called Gopal Media House, and I don't know how to say this, but we could not reach the rental by car. We had to stop the car at one point, and beyond which we had to walk into a little gully and then into a side alley. Basically, it felt like we were doing something illegal, right? And I wasn't sure what to expect. How do I pull up and ask them to set up an Alexa for me? Would that be too much? Would they be rude to me? Would they say, hey, we can't do that for you, we assume you already know it? All of these things are running in my mind. And guess what? We arrived at the location at the rental, and it was a family run business. And lo and behold, these guys were the sweetest people ever. I mean, seriously, if you're in Delhi, you're looking to rent cine equipment, go check out Gopal Media House. They were extremely patient. I didn't tell them that I hadn't used an Alexa before, but I requested them to set it up for me. And they very kindly obliged, gave us a tour, and we also mounted and unmounted all of the lenses in our lens kit, the Ultra Prime lens kit. It's always a good practice to follow from a QC perspective. I ended up spending over an hour at that place, and by the end of this experience, I was feeling a whole lot better. All the inhibitions that I had about the Alexa were basically gone. It was honestly quite exciting because after years of shooting on prosumer cameras from Sony and Fujifilm, I finally got to use a cinema camera and actually DP it, like actually call the shots and not like assist or anything else on it. And if I had to describe my experience with the Alexa Mini, I would say it's the dumbest camera ever, and that's the best compliment I can give it. You know, we get so caught up with options on a Sony camera. You have like 600 different menus, 200 different custom buttons and all of that. You have like zebras, you have temperature, you have it goes on and on. On the Alexa, you have like 5 things to deal with, and you have dedicated physical buttons for almost everything. And if it wasn't already simple enough, you have assistants, 3 of them on the Alexa, who were ready to do anything you asked them to. If I needed to open the aperture by half a stop, covered. If I had to enable peaking, they'll come and do it for me. All of it is just laid out for you, and you just get to spend most of your time composing the image or working on the lighting and framing the image, and everything else sort of fades away. It's quite a different working experience compared to a Sony FX3, where you know it's more run and gun, and of course it's a lot easier to shoot or do certain things on FX3, like getting a quick B-roll shot. On the Alexa, to do the same thing, it would be like a full event. You can't just pick it up and go film something. It's a full exercise, and honestly that exercise is quite cumbersome, but in the right setting with the right crew and the right budgets and everything, that exercise is honestly worth it. Like the image that comes out of the Alexa, I still think the gap is much smaller now between an Alexa and a Sony or an Alexa and a Fuji, but there's something about that image that I still can't put my finger on. The way it rolls off, or the skin tones, there's a certain like tenderness to it, if that makes sense. And of course this also has to do with the lensing and lighting and color, but there's a certain like intimate feeling that comes with the image out of the Alexa. I'm quite satisfied with the images that we made with the Alexa, especially considering it was my first time on the camera. Of course, big credit also here goes to Dinesh, who was my associate and who also pulled focus and who also colored the film. Early on in the prep, Animesh told me that he wanted the film to feel like Delhi in January. Delhi in January or during that time of the year has a very distinct feeling. It's of course very cold, it's overcast weather, but it's not just soft light and not just like a smooth roll off on the skin, but also there's like a certain density and texture in the air. I guess it's the smog, I don't know what exactly it is, but that's the kind of feeling we wanted to replicate. October by Shojit Saka is one film that we kept going back to. That's the kind of feeling that we wanted to create, and to achieve that I resorted to book lighting. Honestly, book is one of my favorite ways to light. I'll run to it in almost any scenario. However, in this case, it actually made sense, so that's what we did. We used the Nanlite 1200, a couple of Nova P300Cs, a couple of tubes in some places. In hindsight, I feel like I should have called for some more fixtures. I feel like we had just the right amount of fixtures, and in some cases, we were even operating at full blast. So that is something I still have to sort of learn, and hopefully I'll get better at with more projects as a DP. But I'm still happy with how the images turned out.
Is it possible for you to support from your head?
Yeah, of course. Like here?
1 second.
Peak filmmaking.
इंडी नहीं इंडी तो नहीं है भाई ये कैमरा लेके
It's 5:45 in the morning, and one of our actors is sick, so I'm just going to get medicine for him. Animesh does not know about this yet. I do not feel like telling him about it just yet because I don't want to panic him. So now I'm gonna go to Amit sir's room and yeah. Welcome to being on a small set where everybody does everything and all the damn time. I am the DP on this set, in case you were wondering. And yes, I'm also a part-time, caretaker for people. It's kind of become a habit for me this past year. Medication in hospitals and everything. उनका number क्या था? 506, I think I forgot. Don't want to wake somebody else up early in the morning. Alright, I think it's 506, yeah. Good morning, sir.
गुड मॉर्निंग।
कैसे हो?
हाँ ठीक हूँ।
पक्का?
हाँ
अगर और कुछ चाहिए तो बता दीजिएगा please. I just hope he shows up to the shoot. We only have 2 actors on this set. It's a 2-day shoot. And we cannot have one of the actors falling sick. Well, welcome to filmmaking where anything can happen anytime, and the only way you can cope with it is by crying.
What makes you upset this fine morning? Shrish? Acha. It's a ad industry reference. Everybody will understand. So how are you feeling about day 2?
खत्म करना है भाई अब
Please, आज ही खत्म करेंगे please. Look at that drip. Whoa, what are those?
The second thing that was on my mind was about the crew and my general level of confidence on set. And I think I did pretty well, if I may say so myself. Now, usually before a shoot, on the day or the night before the shoot, I feel a certain level of nervousness. That is my normal. I feel like if that happens, that is normal for me. But with this particular project, that didn't even happen at all. And even during the shoot, I was fairly calm and composed the entire time. The whole thing about the light guys exposing me, finding out that I've not done a whole lot of this, obviously none of that happened. They were all extremely cooperative, extremely respectful, and some of them were way more experienced than I was, so that helped a lot. I think sometimes we get in our own way and we think too much. I feel like sometimes we just need to take the plunge and stick through, and the rest sort of falls in place. And of course, having the right kind of people, which I think was a big reason I was able to perform at least satisfactorily on this particular project, is the crew, or the people that I was working with, the camaraderie with all the fellow crew members who happen to be my friends. And I think that really helps. Usually on bigger sets, there's a power dynamic, there's fear of approaching certain people. I've certainly had that kind of experience in the past where I can't approach other crew members, and I'm afraid of how they might feel or how they might think about me if I ask them a certain thing. But here, there's none of that. Animesh brings a really great work ethic. He's extremely easy to work with, I find, and also he's just very good at directing actors and giving them notes, and I think that is a delight in itself to watch. And of course, the other crew members, Dinesh, who was my associate, Shrish, who was the first AD, and Shipra, who was the LP, they were also all A1. Now, this project was what you would call a decent ad budget. We're looking in the 7 figures territory. Now, usually what happens as budgets tend to get bigger is that firstly, there are hard, well-defined roles for each person. And second, the experience starts to feel very transactional. That's what I have experienced. It starts to feel a little mechanical. On this set, we didn't have that. Although collectively, this was the biggest, I think, ad film that we've done. The experience was still very indie. And honestly, those are the kind of projects that I enjoy the most, where everybody feels like they own the project. It's sort of fluid, right? There's no hard defined role, and because of the nature of the production, everybody does have to end up doing a little more than what they're originally assigned to do. You know, indie sets are definitely a little more stressful in that sense. But when everyone's on the same page, and I think when everybody's being treated with respect, which I think is the big differentiator, the biggest differentiator in fact, that's when each person treats the film like their own, and that was the case here. And there's a sincere attempt to make something good, and I feel there's something very special about that.
It's a wrap. Bye, Dinesh. What are we shooting today?
Oh, we're shooting real estate with Nikhil Kamath.
I heard there was a no phone policy.
No one was. That's why there's no content yet.
A lot of people have like their own negative theories as to why this billionaire human being has a podcast.
But thank you guys for doing this.